Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now, Chris Eubank Jr. has reportedly signed with the Sauerlands, and he previously worked with them with the World Boxing Super Series. Now, he was supposed to be working with PBC and Al Heyman, but he's only had 2 fights since joining them, in a 3-fight deal, and one of those fights, believe it or not, was actually the James DeGale fight in 2019. So, considering that, he's fought twice in 2 years. And actually hasn't fought since December 2019 when he fought Korobov, and obviously that was only 1.5 rounds because Korobov had to withdraw because of a shoulder injury. So he hasn't been fighting consistently during this part of his career, and he's 31 now. So during the prime of his career, he's been inactive. There is no way that can happen. If he still has aspirations, then a decision had to be made. So that is what he is doing, I guess, by joining Sauerlands. And the positive thing about this for Chris Eubank Jr. above anything else, I think, is that Kalle Sauerland is actually a big fan of Chris Eubank Jr. If you go back and watch some interviews, you can see he's always talking him up. So considering that, he will get him the best opportunities that he can because he's a fan of him. He wants to get him at the big fights. He wants to see him in the big fights. And when you bring that kind of passion to it, that is when you will get the best results. So it is a good move if this is true that he has joined the Sauerlands, because I think that Chris Eubank Jr. needed a shake-up, and he could be moments away from a world title opportunity, which is crazy, again, considering he's only fought twice in the past 2 years, because recently what happened is Canelo vacated his WBA world title in the middleweight division. Now, Chris Eubank Jr. is a WBA interim world champion, and Murata is a WBA regular world champion, so considering the WBA Super Championship has been vacated by Canelo, that means that Murata will take that and he will become a WBA Super Champion, and perhaps Chris Eubank Jr. then becomes the regular champion. That is a case he can put forwards, and that will give him a lot more leverage with getting those bigger fights. And I believe what will happen is Chris Eubank Jr. will fight on at DAZN, because the Sauerlands do have a good relationship with them because they have worked with them with certain World Boxing Super Series fights, and I just think that this fight, or whatever fight Chris Eubank Jr. is in, will go to the broadcasters, whoever wants it. DAZN might pick up a few of them. And considering the relationship is strong between Kalle Sauerland and Eddie Hearn, we might once again see Chris Eubank Jr. on a Matchroom show, so that is quite possible. Chris Eubank Jr. is a very exciting fighter, and I want to see him in the big fights, so hopefully this finally gets him there, because as I said previously, you cannot be this inactive at this point of his career. I mean, he's still got plenty to give. So let's see it in the ring. Let's hope we get to see him in there with the likes of a Charlo down the line. Now, in addition to Chris Eubank Jr. joining the Sauerlands, there has been some other boxing news with regards to Ryan Garcia. This is what he had to say after his epic win over Luke Campbell and his prospects for the future. Belts don't mean anything nowadays. I could take someone off the street, and if I play it correctly, I could make them a world champion. People know who the best fighters are. Devin Haney needs to fight Teofimo Lopez, and I'll fight the winner. Now, in addition to that, Ryan Garcia also laid out his plans to retire from boxing when he is 26 years old. This is what he had to say about that. I'm going to move on and inspire people in a different way, and play my part in the battle against hate and confusion in America. So, there is a lot planned out for Ryan Garcia in a short space of time because he wants the best fights in the next 4 years, because he's 22 now, he will be 26 then when he retires, or when he says he will retire. We don't know whether he's going to get the bug and want to continue on after that. I mean, if David Haye was going to retire when he was 30, he ended up retiring when he was 37, 38, so you can never tell. He might do, but let's talk about that situation with Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney. Ryan Garcia fought Luke Campbell, and that was supposed to be an eliminator to see who gets to fight Devin Haney, who is the WBC World Champion in some form or some way, because Ryan Garcia is silver, Devin Haney is world champion, and Lopez is a franchise champion, so it's kind of crazy and kind of muddled. But anyway, that was supposed to be the kind of deal with Ryan Garcia and Luke Campbell. The winner gets to go and face Devin Haney. Now it seems like Ryan Garcia is more interested in a Gervonta Davis fight, and Devin Haney should be fighting at Teofimo Lopez, in the opinion of Ryan Garcia. So if you think of it like that, it would be Teofimo Lopez versus Devin Haney, and Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis, the winners are fighting one another. I'm guessing that is what Ryan Garcia is getting at, the best fight the best, and the winner will be number 1 in the division, regardless of what belt they have got. And I have to admit, if that is what he is getting at, because he has been speaking about a Gervonta Davis fight, that seems to be the one he wants next, then saying that Devin Haney should fight Teofimo Lopez, then he wants to fight the winner. Is that not what he is getting at? If so, then that's epic, some great fights in there. I mean, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, great fight. Him against Gervonta Davis, a great fight. Then the winners fight one another. As long as they do that, then that is a great route to find out who is number 1 at the moment. Although currently it is Teofimo Lopez, I mean, we can't really dispute that. He is number 1 in that division. He holds all of the belts, but not just that, he beat the man who was a number 1, which is Lomachenko. And clearly now, moving on from that Luke Campbell fight, obviously the feeling after the fight and what it meant to him, obviously that is addictive to him. He wants those big fights now. Let's hope he sticks to that and we get to see the big fights. And if he wants to retire when he's 26, then he is going to need those big fights in quick succession over the coming years. The good thing is, they are all there to be made. The big fights, the big names in that division. Retiring at 26, that is very early and very young in the sport of boxing. There are fighters who are sometimes just turning over to the pro ranks. Sometimes they are still amateurs when they are 26. So that is young to retire. And the worry when he does that is he retires at 26, leaves the game, misses it, tries to come back when he's 30. Then he's missed 4 years and he will never be the same fighter again. Not because he's old, because 30 is not old, but purely because he's been out of the ring and inactive for 4 years. And that brings with it ring rust, losing the timing, losing that edge that he had previously in his career. It's a consistent thing. You have to keep going. You have to keep that kind of a mindset, I believe, in the sport of boxing. Once you lose that, or once you go away from that and go back to normal life, it's very hard, in fact impossible, to get back to that same kind of peak. So he'll retire when he's ready. He says 26 now, but he'll retire when he's good and done in the sport of boxing. Once he's achieved everything he wants to, that is when he will retire. I don't necessarily agree that it will be a certain age for any fighter. I think that a fighter knows when their time is done, and that is when they decide to get out. Now, Canelo Alvarez, he apparently will be fighting Anvi Yildirim in February to defend his world titles in the super middleweight division. Obviously, that is within the WBC because Anvi Yildirim was supposed to be mandated to fight for that vacant world title. So the winner of Smith versus Canelo would have to fight their mandatory, who was called as Anvi Yildirim. So Canelo must deal with that, and the reason why he wants a quick turnaround and to fight him in February is because he wants Billy Joe Saunders in May. Or maybe Caleb Plant. He wants both of them. He wants to win both of those world titles in the super middleweight division. He wants to clean up. So those two are the fights he wants. So that is why he wants to get Anvi Yildirim out of the way in February. Because it's not a fight that he necessarily wants to have. It's a fight that he needs to have because it is mandatory to his WBC World Championship. So it's a fight he must take. That is why he does want to get it done. Then he can move on to the big fights. And that Billy Joe Saunders fight is a brilliant fight. I cannot wait for that to happen. It is going to be so interesting to see if Billy Joe Saunders can raise his game to anywhere closer to Canelo, because if he can, then Billy Joe Saunders truly is something special. But even if he cannot raise his game right to Canelo, if he can get close, then that is going to be an epic fight. Guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Pick your favourite subject and leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Also leave a like and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.